Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome along to our SOLIDWORKS 2021 virtual launch event. It's been a challenging year for all of us, I'm sure. I hope that you are safe and well, and I wish the same for your friends and families too. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank you for your continued support in attending today, and of course for the business that your companies have placed with TMS this year and in the years previously. The content that we're about to share with you, I hope, is relevant, and of course, I hope that you enjoy the new virtual experience. There's nothing more for me to say other than to pass you over to the guys in the team. Take it away, guys, and good luck. Enjoy.
Thanks, Alex, and yes, a very warm welcome to our TMS 3D Experience Works 2021 virtual launch event. We've got a ton of new enhancements and tools to show you this year in, you've guessed it, the best ever release of SOLIDWORKS and the 3D Experience platform. Again, as Alex mentioned, this year has been really challenging for everyone. We've had to implement new ways of working, change the way we interact, and find solutions when we're physically isolated. Thankfully, on the SOLIDWORKS side, we've got you covered for remote working through several built-in tools like online licensing, license borrowing, and the 3D Experience platform. The team here at TMS have been very busy making sure that your service and support is still award-winning through all our remote tools. Over the last 7 months, we've rolled out improvements to our customer portal, implemented a new contact system which is fully accessible from multiple devices, and gone from in-class only training to full remote instructor-led courses on a weekly basis. On top of that, I'm very pleased to announce that both Kieran Young and Craig Girvan achieved the status of Elite Application Engineer just over 2 weeks ago. The Elite Award is the highest single achievement bestowed to the reseller technical teams, and they've worked very hard for it over the last few years, so a big congratulations to both of them. Normally, at this time of year, we're travelling around presenting the new tools and enhancements in person at various locations. Like most events of 2020, we've had to adapt this content and deliver it online. After testing several different platforms, we've decided this year's launch event is best delivered through a Teams live event. We want to make this event as interactive as possible, so we've enabled the Q&A tools on the right side of your screen. During the presentations, you'll be muted to avoid any interruptions, but we'll open the mics at the end of the agenda for anyone who would like to verbally ask any questions. Okay, let's take a look at the controls you have access to. On the right hand side, you have a pane with some icons for Q&A and settings. Clicking on the Q&A icon will bring you to a pane like this. You can add your name and any questions, which will be delivered to the moderators. The moderators will then either answer your question directly or publish your question in the public feed. You can also put a thumbs up on any questions appearing in the public feed to vote or show your approval. Now get comfortable, but not too comfortable, because I'm sure you're going to be on the edge of your seats with some of the presentations you're about to see from Scott, Kieran, Craig and Grant.
Okay guys, so before we get started, we just have a quick video about the model we'll be looking at this year, which is the square robot, and you can see in the background there. So I'll play that for you just now.
Tackling the inspection of dark, harsh, and sensitive environments is the specialty of Square Robot, a startup based out of Boston, Massachusetts. Using advanced submersible robotics lowered into a petroleum storage tank, they autonomously inspect these environments for defects in the storage vessel using state-of-the-art sensing technology. By being able to use robotics for this task, they have reduced costs for their customers while improving accuracy. Their design is focused on safety and reliability for these unique environments, providing maximum uptime and allowing inspections to take place when and where humans would have to otherwise wait for the tanks to be empty. Founded in 2016, Square Robot chose SolidWorks and EnoviaWorks as their go-to design and management solutions. It was critical for them from the start to have the ability to work from anywhere, combined with best-in-class design tools.
So as we dissect this assembly over the next few days, we'll show you some of the enhancements to SOLIDWORKS and to the 3D Experience platform. If we take a look at what's to come over the course of the event, first of all, we'll have a quick preview of some of the enhancements that will help you to simplify and accelerate your use of SOLIDWORKS. Then Craig is going to look at some performance-based enhancements, and there's an increased focus on performance and reliability this year, as well as some improvements to pre-existing workflows. We're then going to demonstrate a whole bunch of SOLIDWORKS enhancements one by one, so you won't miss out on anything this release has to offer. Today we'll see parts, assemblies and drawings, as well as a few other tools such as MBD and Visualize, and tomorrow we'll continue this section and take a look at simulation and PDM, among others. Finally, on day 3, we'll switch focus to the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, but not away from SOLIDWORKS. In fact, we'll show you how SOLIDWORKS can be connected to the platform. We'll also see what we can do when we pair simulation with the cloud. And finally, we'll look at a project from start to finish, which was completed using the platform's browser-based apps. Just like everything in 2020 though, things are a little different this year. For example, some of you may be wondering why the title of this event is 3DEXPERIENCE Workspots New as opposed to SOLIDWORKS Workspots New. And basically, Dassault systems are starting to fade the line that divides their most powerful solutions. And these solutions are now being united onto a common space, which is known as the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. And what you see here is essentially a collection of apps from the 3DEXPERIENCE platform that have been handpicked for SOLIDWORKS customers. And when you bring them all together, they're known as 3DEXPERIENCE Works. But like I say, we'll look at that in some more detail over the course of the event, and we'll get started on today's content. So we'll start off with a quick preview of some of the expanded functionality within SOLIDWORKS 2021. And as the capabilities of SOLIDWORKS increase, we will be presented with opportunities to approach our designs in new ways. With SOLIDWORKS 2021, we've got some new tools that will help you streamline your workflows and improve your productivity. So first up, we have some assembly modelling delighters, such as better mate and pattern control, and the ability to produce Excel-based interference reports, and also curve-driven lengths for chain patterns as well. We've got some improved assembly simplification tools, so we've got the option to save defeatured models as configurations, and also the ability to toggle between full and simplified versions. In part design, we have some more flexibility. For example, the redo function is now available on over 60 features. In sheet metal, we can create edge flanges on non-planar edges, and we can now use equations in our file properties as well. The user interface of SOLIDWORKS is known to be quite intuitive and customizable. However, SOLIDWORKS 2021 comes packed with enhancements that make it even easier to use and even more customizable. We'll see an improved colour picker, which can reference other applications such as web browsers, a command search within the Customize dialog, making it easier to customize our toolbars. We've also got a collapsible command manager, which gives us some more space to work. And we've got some semi-transparent dimensions now as well that make it easy to select entities when we're adding dimensions to our models. And last but not least, we have simulation, which is not only easier to use than in previous releases, but also comes with some great improvements to help us to get accurate results quicker. In flow simulation, we'll see that the free surface option can now be used with rotating regions to take on more complex mixing projects. And with plastics, we have a simplified setup and expanded manufacturing processes. And we'll see these features in more detail over the next couple of days, but I'll hand you over to Craig now, who's going to take a look at some performance-based enhancements.
Thanks, Scott. All the new performance-based enhancements in SOLIDWORKS 2021, from new performance enhancements to assemblies and drawings to more robust simulations, will ensure that more of your time in SOLIDWORKS is focused on design. I'll go over a few of the performance and reliability improvements briefly now, and then we'll go into them in more detail as we go through the rest of today and the 2 subsequent days afterwards. Speed up your drawing creations with improved detailing mode with even more edible features and abilities than were previously available. Selection, panning, and fast zoom make your everyday work faster. Improved occlusion culling and silhouette edges use more of your GPU for faster frames. Faster file operations, configuration switching, and automatic lightweight mode resolving all help with the most complex assemblies. If you're using SOLIDWORKS PDM, you know much of your speed comes from the efficiency of the database. PDM 2021 offers performance improvements that make most of your daily file operations and workflows significantly faster. Those faster operations include things like checking in files, adding new files to the vault, changing the state, opening files from the vault, saving files to the vault, and destroying files, although that last one you probably shouldn't be doing too often. Every year, SOLIDWORKS focuses on enhancements, innovations, and quality and performance. This year, SOLIDWORKS dedicated around 58% of its resources focused on the number one thing that you as customers have asked for: quality and performance. These are areas that SOLIDWORKS always focuses on, but this year there's been an extra effort to achieve even more remarkable improvements for this particular area. The second two largest areas were enhancements, so actually new features to the software, as well as starting to integrate the 3DEXPERIENCE side of things with SOLIDWORKS, so there's a combination between the two. These focus areas were also partially derived from customers themselves, so there was a survey that went out last year on the SOLIDWORKS forums asking users what areas you would like SOLIDWORKS to focus on more, and that's what SOLIDWORKS tried to replicate here with the results from that survey. SOLIDWORKS 2021 and the development cycles associated with it have closed more SPRs than any other release of SOLIDWORKS ever. If you're unsure what an SPR is, it's a software performance request, and pretty much any time someone finds a bug in the software, that's where an SPR is then created for the development team to work on and fix for a future release. This has resulted in a 25% increase in verified fixed SPRs since 2015, meaning that more SPRs, more bugs are being fixed with the newer releases. It wasn't just about fixing low-hanging fruit, small wee tiny bugs. The focus was on areas that matter most to you and that have the largest impact. SOLIDWORKS categorise SPRs based on 5 severity levels, severity 1 and 2 being the most critical, as they have the most significant impact on day-to-day users. Severity 3 and 4 focus on the tools that you still use every day and making sure they work and give you the results you expect. Finally, there's Severity 5. These are things like minor nuisances with the user interface, and these are still important, and that's why they are still fixed with SPR releases, but obviously that priority is generally with the higher severity issues. The predominant focus in this area was really to close down anything in that severity 1 through 4 range that have the most impact on users. Over the last year, we've seen that significant reduction in open SPRs for severity 1 through 4, open meaning they haven't quite been resolved yet. SOLIDWORKS' goal over the next release is to get this down to less than 10%. They might not quite be there yet, but this is the focus to ensure that you guys as customers have the most robust and reliable design tools available. So that's a brief overview of the performance side of things. So now I'll pass it back to Scott, who'll get into the meats and guts of SOLIDWORKS itself and everything that's new inside there.
Thank you, Craig. So now that we've seen some of the highlights, let's take a more detailed look at SOLIDWORKS 2021 in action. So each section that you see here has several demonstrations which highlight the enhancements made to SOLIDWORKS 2021, and we'll start with what we could call the essentials, so our parts, assemblies and drawings. Then we'll move into some of the other tools we have in SOLIDWORKS such as MBD and Visualize. First of all though, we'll look at the user interface. So customizing the user interface is really about finding a balance between minimizing clutter and having your tools at hand when you need them. With SOLIDWORKS 2021, you no longer have to choose between one or the other. So for example, to complete this part, we need to cut and pattern this sketch. We might notice that the sketch and the part color are similar, so we can change these color settings, which is something that's always been available, but in SOLIDWORKS 2021, a column of representative colors is shown here, which makes it easy to find the item that you would like to change. So if we set our inactive sketch color here to a green, we can make our sketch more visible on the part. Also new in SOLIDWORKS 2021 is the ability to collapse the command manager, allowing you to reclaim as much screen space as possible. Moving the quick access tools to the command manager further reduces the amount of space taken up by your icons and helps you focus on your design instead of navigating the menus. All our tools are still available using the tabs at the top of the screen, but a faster way to work is to use the S key keyboard shortcut. However, it doesn't yet have the pattern command that we need. This isn't a problem though, we can simply search for the command, which is new to 2021, and we can drag and drop that onto our shortcut bar. Now this is a convenient way to customize any area of the SOLIDWORKS user interface, including the heads-up display toolbar, as we can see here as we add the redo function. And once we've got our shortcuts set up and ready to go, finishing our design requires minimal effort. So notice here how little the mouse is moved when we create this cut and then pattern it around the center hole. And making a mistake is also easy to correct using the undo feature that we've now got added into our heads-up display toolbar there. And with SOLIDWORKS 2021, redo is much more complete and allows you to redo feature edits now as well. That means that if you accidentally undo a feature, you don't have to spend the extra time recreating it. So with SOLIDWORKS 2021, you no longer have to find that perfect balance between clutter and quick access to the tools that you need. Simply customize your workspace using these new enhancements and you can carry on with your design. Now you're still stuck with me for this next section, I'm afraid. We're now going to look at what's new with parts. So SOLIDWORKS 2021 introduces many enhancements to increase our capabilities when working with parts. So let's focus on the parts in this assembly that we want to work on. And as we go, we'll take a look at some enhancements to sheet metal, 3MF support, and some new capabilities in weldments. And of course, as we go, we'll slip in some other bits and pieces along the way. So when working with sheet metal parts, we were able to create an edge flange on curved edges like these on the right hand side here, but we were limited to curved edges originating from planar faces. And now in SOLIDWORKS 2021, edge flanges can be created on curved edges like these, originating from non-planar surfaces though, such as those in the bend area. So the preview here shows how the edge flange will be created all the way around the part. And if we go over to our Property Manager there, we can see that familiar customization tools are available to help define the edge flange, such as the length, the angle, and the flange position, as we can see there. So as we come out, we can see that this flange looks great, and will provide more stiffness to this angle bracket. And of course, this edge flange can be flattened, ready to be detailed, or exported to DXF for fabrication. Now this new edge flange is great for structural integrity, but it's also useful for enclosures and guards, such as this cover we have here. Now, the edge flange on this side needs to protect the components of the control unit, and we can now change the direction of the flange as well as the angle to wrap around the internal components and keep them safe. So you'll see here that we've reversed the direction, we've changed that angle to 45 there to make our adjustments. Now, this new edge flange capability along non-linear edges extends the sheet metal capabilities of SOLIDWORKS 2021 for many applications such as adding stiffening ribs and enclosures. If we take this LED light assembly, which contains parts of various colours, textures and transparencies, but needs to be 3D printed, we can see that in SOLIDWORKS 2021, support for import and export of 3MF files gets even better. So colours, textures and transparencies are now supported on export, like we can see here, and this information is stored in the 3MF file to be used for manufacturing or for other applications. So we'll see when we open a 3MF file in SOLIDWORKS 2021 that SOLIDWORKS now supports many more appearances, for example per facet and per vertex colouring, as well as textures and transparencies which can now be visualised when importing 3MF files as graphics bodies. Additive manufacturing continues to rise in capability and popularity, and SOLIDWORKS continues to embrace these technologies and move with them. When working in the weldment environment, it's common to use various sizes of weldment members. The horizontal sections in this welded frame are 2x2 square tubes, and the vertical sections are 3x2 rectangular tubes. The trim and extend tool is used to trim the tubes to each other, with various options for the corner type. So the two end butt trims dictate how one tube trims to the other, and the miter trim bisects the angle between the two tubes, creating an equal angle trim. Since these tubes are of different profiles, the equal angle miter does not produce the desired result. In SOLIDWORKS 2021 though, there's a new option for miter trims, which is called the flush miter, which does just that. So it trims the tubes so that they sit flush with one another. And in this case, the other vertical members are mirrored, so when we hit the OK button here to accept that change, that will update the rest of them as well. So this part also needs some appearances applied to it as well. So let's edit appearance and choose a colour. Now we have a wide variety of colours to choose from on the colour palette, or we can use the colour spectrum to define a custom colour, but sometimes we need to use a specific colour that's been dictated by a customer. So if we take a look at the Square Robots webpage, Now here we can obviously learn all about their products and their initiatives, but what we really want just now is the colour on the banner and their page at the top there. Now in SOLIDWORKS 2021, there's a nice option to easily select colours that do not exist on the palette. Just drag the dropper icon over any area of the screen and that colour will be selected. So if we take that here and we drag it over that blue section of the banner there, we can use that to colour these bodies there. For the vertical members of the weldment though, we'd like to have a different colour. So let's select several of these bodies just now, and we can use the orange colour in the logo and apply that to the bodies as well there. So this new colour picker works on any image displayed on the screen. I think you'll agree it's quite a nice little addition. Now another area SOLIDWORKS with some enhancements is custom properties. The custom properties, as we know, are a great way of storing information about a document, such as the description or the creation date. And these can be used to automatically populate title blocks, bills of materials, or PDM data cards. Sometimes it's necessary to calculate a result, though, to define a custom property. And in SOLIDWORKS 2021, equations are supported in custom properties. So if we just define our property name here, we'll see that we can actually choose equation as the type of property that we want to create, as we see there. And with that, we have access to global variables, functions, and a whole bunch of other properties, as we can see here in the value field. We've got access to all the usual functions, properties, everything that you would expect. So for this weldment, we want to define an estimated cost that is based on this global variable multiplied by the mass of the part. So we can go and use both of them in this equation, and you see that calculates our end result there. Now, equations can be used in cut list properties as well. So this plate in the cut list is used 4 times, and we would like to know the total length of all the plates together. Again, we can define the property name and choose equation as the property type. And for this calculation, we want to multiply the quantity of plates by the plate length, which results in the total length on the right-hand side, which we'll see in just a little second. There we go. So parts are the foundation for creating assemblies and drawings, as we know. And with these new additions, we can see that SOLIDWORKS is continuing to enhance its already powerful capabilities in the parts department. So with that, I'll hand you over to Kieran, who is going to take a look at some of the enhancements in assemblies and drawings.
Thanks for that, Scott. That all looks great. I really like the addition of the equations within the custom properties. Really good thing to see that they've added in there. Moving over to assemblies. Now we're going to break this up into 3 mini sections here. So we're going to start off by looking at some little assembly delighters within there, things just to make things a little bit easier. We'll then swap over to assembly performance and any enhancements that have been added there. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up with some graphics improvements that have been made within SOLIDWORKS as well. So starting off with those delighters then. So with this design that we have here, I've got this little bolt and I want to make this into position. Now, that's where the first enhancement that you'll notice is. Within the Mates Property Manager here you'll see that we no longer have the individual drop-downs for the different style of mates. We now have individual tabs for each of them, making it quicker and easier to flick through the tabs and find the mate that we're interested in. Once we've got the mate that we want, we can then accept it, and I'm pretty sure we'll have all been here before where it is not quite made in the right direction, and we've long been able to use this option to flip the mate alignment. Now, I'm pretty sure, again, most of us have been here before where we flip the alignment and we get this little dialog box, and do we click yes, do we click no, what's going to happen? And unfortunately, we've clicked no, and all of a sudden we've got all these errors in our tree. Now, what we actually have within SOLIDWORKS 2021 is a new addition of a system property within the assembly section here, where we can have it so it always prompts or always uses one of the options within there. So in this case, we're going to say that we always want it to click yes on that little dialog box. So what's that going to do? Well, we'll try and add that mate in again. Got it in here. I'm just going to flip that round, and this time the dialog box doesn't even pop up, it flips it automatically, and it flips the alignment of any corresponding mates that may cause any issues. Finally, I want to finish off this design by adding in a little slot mate to get this bolt into position. And one thing you'll notice is it's defaulted to center and slot instead of the free option. The other thing you'll notice is we have the addition of the lock rotation within here as well. However, going back to that default slot position, again, this is an option that's been added in within the document properties here, where we can set up the default location for our slot mates. This means that we no longer need to spend additional time defining the position of it, or even worse, potentially selecting the wrong position and having to go back and correct it at a later date. Now remember, that is a document property, guys, so if we do want to use it and have it set up by default, we need to add it into our document templates. Moving on to component patterns, and as you can see, we've always had the ability to change the configuration of individual instances of a pattern. However, in this case, I actually want all of my bolts within the pattern to be of the same configuration. Well, with SOLIDWORKS 2021, we now have the ability to synchronize this configuration with the seed component. With that selected, we'll then flip over all of those other instances of the component. And what you'll notice is I no longer get the drop down for the configuration on one of the instances, and the previously seen option is also grayed out. I can then go through the seed component and change the configuration, and that'll filter through to all of the instances of that component within the pattern, making it quicker and easier to define our assemblies. Now, another useful tool that we can find on the evaluation tab is interference detection, and it's been one that's in there for a while. However, a new addition to interference detection is the ability to save these results out. Now, what this does is it basically creates an Excel document with some little thumbnails, as you can see from the checkbox here, basically displaying all of the interferences seen within the model. This is a great way, if you're not the person that actually changes any of the design or anything like that, you're simply viewing it and critiquing it if you wish. You can basically populate out this document and pass it over to someone else to check over and fix any errors that may be in there. Now that covers the lighter side of things, so moving over to the assembly performance enhancements. And I know we say it every year, but SOLIDWORKS 2021 truly is the fastest release ever. Take this assembly for example. It's got 2,259 components in it. Despite that, it opens up in as little as 21 seconds. As you can see, lightning fast. Now, these enhancements have been added for both resolved and lightweight assemblies, so you should see enhancements for both of them. Further enhancements for lightweight assemblies are the streamlined workflow for it. Now, by simply digging down into our Feature Manager design tree, we can start to resolve individual assemblies and components as and when we need them, making it quicker and easier to dig down into the components that we want, whilst not waiting for other assemblies and parts to resolve that we don't really need to work on at that time. Again, just making it quicker and easier to get to work on your designs. Configurations are also even faster within SOLIDWORKS 2021, whether that be adding new configurations or even switching between configurations. You should see that the load times are faster. Now, finally, another tool that's within the evaluation tab within SOLIDWORKS, and it's been one in there for a while, is the performance evaluation. Now, this is a great one for trying to see what's happening within our assembly, something that might be slowing your assembly down along those sorts of lines. But with SOLIDWORKS 2021, we now have the addition of the circular reference report within here. So what this is going to do is basically indicate any circular references within our model. In this case, we've got two sets of holes on two different parts, which are each referencing each other in order to locate them. So we can now start to use this information, dig down into our model, and see what exactly is going on with it. In this case, we'll isolate out the components and dig down into the features. Select now, we can see that we have a hole wizard hole within here. Look into the positions of it, and sure enough, this one has two external reference concentric mates, align the center points with the edge of the other component. That's okay, that's quite a standard top-down assembly modeling technique, but let's have a look at the other component. Again, we've got a hole wizard hole. You can dig into the positions a little bit, look at those relations, and sure enough, we've got the exact same thing. So each hole centre point is trying to align itself on the edge of the corresponding hole. To resolve this, we're just going to delete this out and add in some mates to define it instead. Now it's these circular references that start to slow down our assemblies. If you imagine, the software is trying to look at both holes in order to align them with each other. So where exactly is that position if they're trying to align off each other and there's no dimension to reference it? Now that we have that one solved, we can then jump back into our assembly. And another useful tool that's been within SOLIDWORKS since 2019 is the Silhouette Defeature tool. Now, the Silhouette Defeature tool is a great way of creating a simplified version of your assembly, or even a great way of trying to hide out some proprietary information within there. Now, the way the tool works is we can simply go through and select items that we want to include, add those into groups in order to simplify that down. The other great little addition is we get a nice little preview window, so we can start to see how the simplified version is building up as we step through this one section at a time. Now, as we're going through selecting either individual bodies, parts, or even assemblies, we can select the simplification method that we want to use. Whether we want it to be a simple polygon outline, a cylindrical shape, or even in some cases, we might even want a bit of a tighter fit for some of these components. Once we've got those in place, we can then continue on to the next step. Again, it's just picking our components and selecting the simplification method that we're looking for. Just going to finish off this design, got a couple more components to go. Again, I'm going to go with the tight fit option in this case. To finish this off, there's some information which is pretty critical to the design, which I want to be included in the top level assembly. In this case, I'm just going to say I want to copy this geometry exactly. Now, the addition to SOLIDWORKS 2021 is this ability to create a new configuration of this simplified version, whereas previously this needed to be a separate part that was saved out. Now, if it is proprietary information that you're trying to hide out, I would recommend that you still go with the new document option. That way you can easily maintain information that's being shared out with your company. However, with SOLIDWORKS 2021, the ability to use this configuration has never been easier. Now, just to see what exactly has happened here, can dig down into the configuration manager, and what we'll find is we now have a new defeatured configuration within there. To make it nice and easy to use at the top level assembly, we can now quickly and easily simply right click on the assembly in the feature tree and use the option to use the defeatured component or even configuration. Now, this can also be done from a top level by right clicking on the top level assembly and selecting to use all defeatured configurations. Likewise, we can also use the parent configurations that way as well. Now, I'm sure you can agree that that is a useful little tool to have within your top level assemblies, and it'll speed your assembly up even quicker than it ever has been before. Now, that wraps up the performance side of things for assemblies, so let's jump into the graphics improvements instead. Now, within SOLIDWORKS, since 2019, we've had this option to enable graphics performance. As of SOLIDWORKS 2021, this option will now be checked by default. Now, if you've never came across this option before, I highly recommend you have a look at it, because what it actually does is it makes use of your NVIDIA or certified NVIDIA graphics cards that you're using. For example, we'll have a little look at see what it does here. Now, on the left-hand side, we've got a setup where it's using the enhanced graphics performance, and on the right-hand side, that option is turned off. What we're now going to do is run a little macro, which is going to do 500 mouse rotations of this assembly. And you can even see just from comparing the images there that the option checked on is a lot faster. In fact, it did it in less than 8 seconds in comparison to the option turned off. It did it in over 160 seconds. So it's a no-brainer. Why not use it? Well, that's the availability that we have within SOLIDWORKS at the moment. So what's new to SOLIDWORKS 2021? Well, we've actually got two new improvements for the enhanced graphics. The first improvement that we have is when it comes to our hidden lines removed and hidden lines visible option. Now, calculating silhouette edges has always been a heavy CPU process in the background. However, with SOLIDWORKS 2021, this has now been pushed onto our graphics card instead. Again, we're going to run the same macro this time round, just doing those 500 mouse rotations. And again, the comparison is non-existent. For example, with the option turned on, it's done it even quicker this time. It's less than 5 seconds in comparison to the option checked off, which is 170 seconds. Moving on to the second enhancement that we have, and this one is for what we call occlusion culling. Now, in this developer build that we have, you can see that not all of the components have been rendered, and that's basically the enhancement in here. So any components which aren't seen from the view that we're looking at, hidden in the background, are no longer rendered unnecessarily. Again, just lightens up that load a little bit, making those assemblies move a lot quicker. Now, in this case, there wasn't too many components that weren't rendered there. So as I suggest, the larger the assemblies, the greater the performance boost that you're going to see in here. Now, that wraps up the assembly section for the enhancements for SOLIDWORKS 2021, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree there's some great stuff within there. However, we're now going to move on and have a little look at the drawing enhancements. So, looking at drawing performance, and one thing that users have always asked for when it comes to drawings is the ability to have some speed on their side, making things quick and easy to change in detail within the drawings. Now, one thing that's been added within the past couple of years is this detailing mode. And it's a great way of opening our drawings up nice and quick. However, with SOLIDWORKS 2021, this enhancement graphics performance that we saw in the assembly environment has now been pushed into the drawings environment as well. So all the benefits that we saw from within the assembly environment are now going to be within our drawings as well. Now, just to see exactly how this is going to work, again, we're going to do a little comparison between 2020 and 2021, as you can see here. So if we open the same drawing on both applications, and if we pan around in 2020, what you'll notice is there's a little bit of a lag with the sheet there. You can see there's a little bit of a delay as we're moving that around. If we try the same thing in 2021, what you'll notice is the sheet moves exactly where my mouse is. So you can see performance is a lot better. Now, if we then start to look at zooming within a sheet, again, you can see it's pretty instantaneous as we go along. Even when we get over to views such as this one, where it's got a lot of detail in it. Again, try the same thing in SOLIDWORKS 2020, and again, we've got that lag that we saw previously as well. Again, drag that over, and it's just a little bit sluggish in there. Now, the same thing can be seen if we use our scroll bars in order to pan around the image. Again, we've got a little bit of lag in 2020, whereas 2021, everything's just a lot smoother. Now, if we swap over to sheet number 2 here, you can see there's a lot more views and a lot more detail in here. And again, you'll see it's just a little bit sluggish in 2020. However, in 2021, it's just a lot smoother. Now again, because there's a lot more detail in this sheet, you'll see much greater improvement with it. Again, the more detail, the more improvement that you'll notice. Now, going back to the detailing mode that we're talking about, now it has been added in for a couple of years, but with SOLIDWORKS 2021, there's also been some enhancements to it. So that's great. Opens up our drawings really quickly. We can move around nice and fast because it's not loading in any unnecessary data. But what it allows us to do is to edit any annotations within our drawing as well. Not only that, as we flick between our different sheets here, you'll notice that there's no loading time between it either. All the information just pops right up, again because it's not loading up any of that excess information in the background. Now, going back to the enhancements for 2021, you'll notice that we now are able to edit any existing annotations within there. Say, for example, this note that we have, we can edit any of the text, we can remove any that we're not interested in anymore. and this is all within our detailing mode. If we look at this view here, you'll notice that we have some break views in it. However, we don't quite in this view above. However, new with 2021, we now have the ability to add detailing views, break views, and crop views all within our detailing mode. So if we drop in our lines here, quickly and easily, and I'll start to add those in where we want them. Now what you'll also notice is all of the different break line styles are also available, still within detailing mode. Not only that, we also have the ability to add to existing ordinate dimensions within here. So I pick up some of these edges and center lines, and it just adds on to any existing ones that may not have been added within our detailing mode. Now going back to the different views that we can create, say our detailed view here, it's just the same way that we create any other detailed view that we're used to creating. We can sketch in our circle or select an existing sketch if we want. And we could finish this off by adding a little whole call out to add some extra information. Again, a nice little enhancement to SOLIDWORKS 2021. And simply select our whole call out and it's going to pull through that information. Finally, we could add in some dimensions, and again, the ability to add in foreshortened dimensions is also within detailing mode. Another little enhancement to it is when I select this dimension, you'll notice that all of the properties from the dimension are now available within the property manager. I can now add in any tolerance or precision that I want within there, and I'll automatically update. Likewise, for this dimension here, you can see it's not quite centered about that circle correctly, but since I have access to all of the properties within my property manager, I can now change that arc condition so it now centers to that hole, and it drops in where I would expect it to. So you can see there's some nice enhancements to detailing mode there, making things quicker and easier to detail your drawings as we're going along. Now, those aren't the only enhancements. Another great enhancement that you'll see here is as we add in dimensions, it's even easier to make our selections. As we make our second selection, you'll notice how the dimension is faded out now. So we can now easily see any edges which are hidden behind that dimension that we're dropping in. Now, another little enhancement that's been added, and this is one from a user enhancement request, is the addition of VDA balloons. Now, this is something which is widely used within the automotive industry. So again, users asked for it, SOLIDWORKS provide it. Now, to finish off this little section, this drawing up here has a little sketch up in the right-hand corner. And in order to define this sketch, we'd typically be looking to go over to the property manager on the left-hand side to add in any mates. However, just to match it up with the part environment, our mates are now added to the quick little flyout right next to our mouse, so we can keep all our attention right on the graphics area where we're working. Again, can then snap it into place, and it makes these changes quicker and easier than they ever have been before within SOLIDWORKS 2021. Now, I'm sure you'll agree there's some great little enhancements in there when it comes to drawings. Quick little section, but it was action-packed, and I'm sure you'll take away some benefits from it. But following on from this, we're going to move over and have a little look at some MBD.
Thanks for that, Kieran. So what I'm going to do next is take you through two sections on MBD, or model-based definition, as well as eDrawings, and then we'll move on to some of the other sections. New in SOLIDWORKS MBD 2021 is support for datum targets in the MBD environment. Bend tables can now be tabulated in the 3D PDF, similar to that of bill of materials. There's also some additional options for HTML outputs when it comes to the 3D PDF side of things as well. SOLIDWORKS MBD provides an integrated alternative to creating 2D drawings, which helps you define, organise and publish 3D product manufacturing information, or PMI, into industry standard formats. 3D views provide an easy way to organise information for individual manufacturing operations, capturing model orientation and display the relevant PMI data, removing ambiguity and making it easy to understand. Datum targets are useful for defining points or areas of contact to establish a datum to simulate a mating part or fixture. Now, in SOLIDWORKS MBD 2021, datum targets are available in the MBD environment. Locating dimensions can accurately define the location of the datum target and are fully editable just like any other dimension. Let's set up a datum target on the far end of our sheet metal part. The first selection establishes the datum reference framework, in this case datum A. Then place the target and its balloon. The datum target can be defined as a point, circle or rectangle. For this one, we'll make it a 1/4 inch circular target. Locating dimensions can be applied to define the position, and for this target we'll make it, let's say, 1 inch from the far end, and from the vertical flange, which is going to be datum B, we'll make it 1 3/4 inches, and the datum target is now fully defined. Flat patterns in 3D views have been available in the past, including bend tables and bend notes in the 3D view, but now in SOLIDWORKS MBD 2021, this bend table information can be published to a 3D PDF in a clear, concise tabular format, similar to the way bill of materials are handled normally. For this part, let's attach a neutral 3D format, for example, step file, and also include the flat pattern information as a DXF file for laser cutting. All of the custom properties are extracted from the part and pushed to the 3D PDF, and the bend table columns can be selected for publishing. 3D PDFs are a great way to accurately communicate your design with downstream manufacturing operations who are not lucky enough to have SOLIDWORKS. All that is needed is Adobe Acrobat Reader, and all the 3D views are represented in an easy to read and navigate format. All of the information about the datum target is available, and the flat pattern view contains the bend notes corresponding to the tabulated bend table on the left. With the new datum target support, SOLIDWORKS MBD and tabulated bend tables in 3D PDFs, it is easier than ever to embrace model-based definition to eliminate time-consuming drawing creation and reduce manufacturing errors. Moving on to eDrawings side of things, we've got a few improvements there. eDrawings excels at allowing you to share your 3D concepts while protecting your intellectual property. eDrawings 2021 gives you even more options to make communicating your design ideas even easier. You can now view custom and configuration specific properties right inside the eDrawings viewer. Commands like measure have been significantly improved as well. Finding the center to center distance of two circular holes or cylindrical objects has always been available, but now in eDrawings 2021, you can choose to view the minimum and maximum distances. You can also measure the normal distance between planar and cylindrical faces. Sharing your 3D designs without the requirement to install the free eDrawings viewer is easy. All you have to do is save it as the web HTML format. Any modern web browser natively opens these files, allowing the recipient to pan, rotate, zoom, as well as view configurations, exploded states, section views, and even more. eDrawings web HTML format now supports measurements directly inside the web browser. Also new in 2021 for eDrawings is the ability to move and rotate individual bodies, making it easier to interrogate large projects without having to dig through an assembly tree. With these new enhancements, you can clearly communicate your concepts, giving the recipient a better understanding of your designs with no installation required. And with that, I'll hand it back to Kieran, who'll take you through all the new exciting stuff inside SOLIDWORKS Visualize.
Thanks for that, Craig. That looks great. Looks like there's some great stuff in there. Moving over to SOLIDWORKS Visualize, and we've got a few enhancements with Visualize this year, where we've got the addition of configurations, a long needed one in there, and a whole bunch of other things, but we'll jump straight into it. So with Visualize 2021, the interconnectability between CAD and Visualize is even better than it ever has been before. So as you can see, we've got a few configurations set up in here. And when we jump into Visualize, in previous versions, we would only have access to the previously saved configuration. However, with Visualize 2021, we now have access to all of the configurations within our CAD model, making it quicker and easier to dig down into the components that we're interested in. Now, applying appearances has always been a quick and easy drag and drop process within Visualize, and the same thing continues with Visualize 2021. However, we have a more streamlined workflow. With a single click, as always, that is a part selection within Visualize, but now with Visualize 2021, a double click now takes us into that part's appearance. This makes it quicker and easier to copy and paste appearances, or even go into the appearance details and edit that a little bit better. Taking a closer look at this bracket that we have here. Now, this bracket is a component that's made in-house via a 3D printer. So we've got a little bit of work to do with that here. Now, using the previously seen double click on the component, we can dig into the component appearances and start to manipulate the color. But to give it a more realistic look, we're going to go ahead and add in a texture map. Now, texture maps are a great way of adding some sense of realism within there. And what they essentially do is use what we call a grayscale in order to define to the software how much to offset the surface in order to give that surface finish that we're looking for. In this case, we'll go for the 3D print texture here, and then we'll go ahead and apply that. Now, adding the depth to this texture has always been a bit of a tricky thing within Visualize, but new with Visualize 2021, we now have the ability for this displacement density. So we can now control exactly how much it is impacting the surface on the component. As you can see, the component on the left there, it's broken up into all these different triangles, and that's basically how it comes into Visualize. But with this displacement density, we're now able to break that up into smaller triangles in order to display that texture mapping a little bit more clearly. We'll go ahead and apply that to the geometry, and all of a sudden it looks a little bit more realistic. Now, in this case, it's a little bit too exaggerated for the 3D printing process that we have. So, as always, what we can do is use a previously saved appearance from a previous project and apply that to the component. We can then finish this off by digging into the appearance again and manipulating that texture mapping to, say, a planar face, and then finally rotate it around 45 degrees so it better meets the 3D printing process of this component. Moving on to the configurations again. Now, that bracket isn't the only in-house component. We actually have a few more in there, and it's been pretty acceptable that we want to create a rendering of these components alone. Now, a great way of showing some detail within our drawings is with section views, and the same thing applies with our renders, and we've always been able to do this with our section planes. However, with Visualize 2021, we now have the ability to show the caps for these section planes or cutting planes, and we can even change the color of those. Now, changing the color really creates some eye-popping images, and we can start to control and add in multiple cutting planes and hide and show the visibility of them via the right mouse click. Moving back over to our full assembly. Now, a realistic image isn't always the best way to go when we're trying to show our concepts. Now, if this is simply a concept design, we might want something which doesn't look too realistic to begin with. So new with Visualize Professional 2021, that is, we now have this toon rendering mode. Gives it a slightly more cartoony look, but we also have some other presets within there where we have white on black, black on white, or ambient occlusion is a real great way of showing some realistic shading in there. That in combination with the edge colouring editing and shading styles, it can really give you some great rendering outputs from it. Jumping back to the main model and looking at our outputs. Now, creating individual output layers, again, has been a thing that we've been able to do within Visualize for quite a while now. Whether it be we want to render out the beauty layer, clown, or a mission even. Well, with Visualize 2021, we now have the ability to render all of these outputs at the same time, whereas previously we need to do these all individually. So we can now more quickly and easily get out the layers that we're interested in order to create our final images. Again, the streamlined processes just make it quicker and easier in order to create our final output renders. Now I'm pretty sure you can see we've got quite an action-packed enhancements there for Visualize 2021. So if we stick looking at the Visualize theme just for another few minutes here, guys, and we've actually got a little quiz prepared for you to see if there's any eagle-eyed viewers out there. So what we have on screen is a little challenge. So we've got two images here, one of them a real image and one of them is a rendered image. So let's just see who can spot which is real and which is the render. I'll give you guys a few minutes. You can just pop your answers in the question box. And in a little bit, we'll come back and we'll have a look to see what the answers are.
TMS have provided the IT technology needs of Scottish businesses for nearly 40 years. Our purpose-built headquarters in Larbert is the hub of the business, housing teams of dedicated specialists and trainers, all there to help you and your business to succeed.
For us, it's all about the customer. The customer is king in our business.
The list of clients is impressive, from these and many other industry sectors.
Our job's to ensure the customer's got the correct tools in place to run their business efficiently. That's all about understanding what they do and how they do it, and then providing them with the best solution.
The Paint Shed has been in business for over 20 years and is Scotland's largest independent paint retailer and have branches throughout Scotland. TMS and the Paint Shed have worked hand in hand in developing a stock control system. We've went from a totally manual system to a fully automated system, and all the benefits that brings our business through freeing up time, cash flow and more accurate stock, which is all good for our business.
Allied Vehicles is predominantly a wheelchair accessible vehicle manufacturer. We also convert taxis, hackney spec vehicles. TMS support us in a wide variety of ways. It could be something as simple as an error that we have with a drawing. We'd be able to send the files on to them, or they can look at help us to incorporate a new part numbering system. So they've been very supportive of that, and especially with training for some of our employees and newer team members. They've tended to go above and beyond when trying to implement new products.
We are House Collective. We are architecture practice based in Glasgow. We work in Scotland and across the rest of the UK on a range of scale of projects, from one-off houses to large-scale city centre urban regeneration projects. We contacted TMS when we set up our business 5 years ago. And they have been very, very good in actually helping us through the different stages of evolution of our practice.
Taylor & Fraser is a contractor in industrial heating and ventilation. One of the original clients for TMS. They have created a number of bespoke features which relating to job performance and labour management, which have been extremely helpful in Taylor & Fraser delivering projects on time and profitably.
TMS has the tools and expertise to help. Let's look forward to the next 40 years together.
So now that we've had a chance to have a look at the images and decide which one's real and which one's a render, it's finally time to find out the answers. See who can get it right. So, drum roll please. That's right. Image B is actually the real image, and image A is in fact a render. In fact, believe it or not, image A is actually a render from SolidWorks Visualize. It just goes to show you just how good the application can be when we put it to use. We can get some realistic images out of it, which is great for marketing, of course, or to have a little bit of fun like this.
Thanks for that, Kieran. I've got to say, Visualize is probably one of the things I'm always most excited for when I see the what's new. So taking a little bit of a step to the side, what we're going to look at next is a little bit of information regarding the installation and this kind of system requirements of that sort of thing for SolidWorks 2021, as well as things to do with PDM, SNLs, server operating systems, all that sort of thing. When it comes to installing SolidWorks 2021, the system requirements from 2020 haven't changed too much. What I've done is I've listed the base requirements that SolidWorks give, so the kind of minimum requirements on the left. Then I've added in what kind of us at TMS recommend. For the processor or CPU side of things, obviously SolidWorks recommends kind of 3.3 gigahertz or higher. Generally, you want that to be the base clock and not the boost clock that the processor goes to. And if you're going down the Intel line of processors, using a Xeon processor is generally much more recommended than using a normal kind of i7, i9, and that sort of idea. For the memory or RAM in the machine, 16 gig is generally more than enough. If you are someone who does a lot of simulation or visualize work, so doing some renders, going up towards kind of 32 gig, 64 gig of RAM is recommended a bit more. And also, if you have a Xeon processor, getting the RAM that's ECC is much more better for reliability as well. For the graphics card, I'll go into detail a bit more on that on the next page, but these are kind of two good kind of baselines to get started. For operating system, it's just the usual kind of Windows 10. If you're up to date in regards to the kind of versions that have come out in 2020, obviously version 2004 came out at the start of this year. That works a little bit better with SolidWorks. Office version, there isn't too much in regards to compatibility. As long as you've got Office 2013 or newer, you should be perfectly fine. When it comes to storage, obviously you want to make sure you're ideally using an SSD for both the storage of your files and for actually installing SolidWorks and Windows. If you do have an SSD, just watch out for whether it's one that has DRAM in it, because if you do have an SSD that doesn't have DRAM, it will typically be a little bit slower, and obviously that'll affect your performance. And you can obviously get NVMe drives as well that are a little bit faster typically. Full file set for SolidWorks 2021 is around about 15.8 gigabytes for Service Pack 0 that's out there now. Obviously, when you come to install SolidWorks, you want to make sure you have that full 15.8 gig file set available. You don't want to be upgrading using kind of 2, 3, 4, 5 gig kind of update file sets, because that can quite often have a bit of problems. Going to the graphics card side of things, I've listed here both what NVIDIA recommend at the top and AMD recommend at the bottom. Obviously, for specifically SolidWorks, we're looking at that kind of 5th and 6th row in the top table. And obviously, we've got general ideas of kind of what NVIDIA refer to as good, better, and best. You can typically consider that of more, are you working with kind of parts and small assemblies, medium to large assemblies, or kind of really large kind of assemblies and simulation, that sort of thing. Obviously, the RTX Quadro cards are much more newer and up-to-date one. You can get away with one generation older, so the kind of P graphics cards or even the T series. But obviously, if you're looking to buy a new graphics cards, I'd probably be looking at the Quadro RTX cards for the NVIDIA side of things. And obviously, if you're wanting the AMD side of the graphics cards, the Radeon Pro graphics cards are their kind of CAD side of things. Obviously, just make sure you're trying to avoid the whole gaming side of graphics cards, because obviously they'll still have the prefix for things like RTX, but they'll generally have the kind of GeForce prefix rather than a Quadro inside there, which, although they might work, tend not to be as great for reliability and also aren't kind of fully supported with SolidWorks, so you could potentially come into some issues there. When it comes more to the PDM side of things or the server requirements, not a whole lot has changed since 2020, but I just wanted to remind people what them are, because we have seen a lot of people wanting to upgrade to kind of PDM 2020 and 2021, but it turns out the server side of things isn't quite up to par for the software. Obviously, the SNL side of things, that's not just for PDM, but that's also for any of your network licenses for SolidWorks, Visualize, Composer, and so on and so forth. The minimum requirement for them is Windows Server 2016. Obviously, if you don't quite meet that requirements, I'd probably consider looking at getting Windows Server 2019. That way you can future-proof that little bit extra. If you're going to be updating PDM Standard to 2021, that's where you'll need SQL Express 2014 or newer. Again, if you don't quite meet that requirements, I would probably consider something on the lines of SQL Express 2017 or ideally 2019. Again, so you can future-proof that a bit more. If you're on the PDM professional side of things, obviously you're not looking at SQL Express at that point, you'll be looking at SQL Standard, but the same years and versions come into play. If obviously you've got some operating systems that are in between them, this is where I've just listed each of those different operating systems and SQL versions, and when they become end of life, i.e. after that point you won't be able to install newer versions. So if any of you guys are still on Windows 7, you can run all the way up to the end of SOLIDWORKS 2020, but you won't be able to install SOLIDWORKS 2021, so that's where you'll have to update to Windows 10. But I think thankfully most customers at this point are on Windows 10. If you're trying to update the server side of things, we have already seen a bunch of customers trying to upgrade to SOLIDWORKS and PDM 2020 and come into that issue with having Windows Server 2012 R2, which is getting to that point of kind of 7-8 years or so old at this point. So obviously that's where you will need to update to Windows Server 2016 or newer for both SOLIDWORKS 2020 and now 2021 as well. If obviously you have PDM, obviously the SQL server versions at the bottom will be of importance. Obviously in the last page I mentioned SQL Server 2014 is compatible and will work for PDM 2021, but 2021 SP5 will be its end of life, meaning this time next year if you want to update to kind of PDM 2022, you will have to update to Windows Server 2016 or newer, which is typically why we try to recommend going up to the kind of 2019 versions of each of these respectively. The last slide is absolutely nothing new for 2021, but it's just a reminder to make sure that no matter whether you're using PDM or if you're storing your data on network drives or on your local machines, make sure that you're backing up files and you're backing up regularly, just in the off chance that anything goes wrong, that you don't lose any of that important data. If you are backing up PDM, make sure that you're backing up both the databases. So there'll be a database for your actual vault and a Kinesis master database. There'll be the archive files, that'll be your physical files themselves, as well as the archive settings. Then obviously if you're storing your data on a network drive or on your local machine, make sure you're backing up all of those folders, including any design libraries and toolbox that you might have edited and made changes to as well. Inside SOLIDWORKS itself, I would also recommend you have both the backup and the recovery options turned on. And that'll be inside your SOLIDWORKS system settings, and that can give you a quick solution should SOLIDWORKS ever crash or your computer blue screen or anything of that nature. That way you can get a backup from maybe kind of 10 minutes ago, rather than having to phone up IT, getting them onto the server and getting a backup from there or something of that nature, or just generally losing potentially hours of work, that sort of idea. If you do have any questions about the backups or you want to make sure you're doing the backups correctly or anything like that, do just get in touch with us and we can help you out from there. And from there, I'll pass it back to Scott now, who will give you a quick overview of day one and then even a little kind of sneak peek at what's to come with day two tomorrow.
Thanks for that, Craig. So just to recap, if we take a look back at what we've covered today, we first had a quick look at some of the examples of the new features in SOLIDWORKS 2021 and also at some of the performance-based enhancements. We then dug deeper into some individual topics and saw SOLIDWORKS 2021 in action. So we saw enhancements to parts, assemblies and drawings, and also had a look at MBD, eDrawings and Visualize. And Craig has just given us a really nice overview and some things to consider when installing SOLIDWORKS 2021. Tomorrow we'll pick up from where we left off and finish this SOLIDWORKS 2021 in action section. So first up, I'm going to take us through some of the enhancements to the Composer, and then we'll get to see some simulation, PDM, and we've got a few others in there as well. So that just about wraps things up for today, but we'll open it up to you guys now for any questions you might have regarding what you've seen today.